My husband was involved in an accident, of course, because he was the passenger. Everyone in the vehicle was injured and hurt. Our question is, we're doing it without an attorney. My husband's trying to actually handle himself. So we like to know, actually with an adjuster, how soon can you actually ask to settle this out? How long did it take?
Well, that's a very complicated question there, Ms. Jess. With respect to how quickly something can be resolved, there's no mathematical formula or science to that. It just depends on the particular adjuster you're dealing with, the particular case that you have, what your injuries are, what the level of treatment are, the nature, if is liability contested or not. So there's a lot of different factors that go into that. But the most important thing is to get the documentation and records to the adjuster, because if it's not in writing, if it's not documented, in their world, it didn't happen. So pictures, records, any reports from doctors, images, diagnostic studies, it's important to gather those in order to properly value the case. Because, I mean, your husband's obviously been injured, there's problems there. You want to make sure and get that information to that adjuster so that they can properly value and give all of the different aspects of your claim. If there's lost wages, time that he's missed from work, you want to get all of that to them so they can properly evaluate that claim. It's even even more important in this particular case when you have multiple claimants, because you can get into a situation where, let's say, for example, some policies, some in the state of Florida, you're not even required to carry bodily injury coverage, which is what you're seeking for your personal injuries, and they may have no coverage, or they may have what's called a 10-20 or a 25-50 policy, which means $10,000 maximum per person or $20,000 maximum for the whole accident. If you have 3, 4, 5 people that are injured in that accident, that could end up being a real issue on how to allocate those funds. So if there's multiple competing parties for that limited fund, you want to make sure and get your information to them as quickly as possible so that you have the ability to potentially get a fair share of that limited fund. So I would make sure and get those records, get them to them quickly in order to make sure that you are properly compensated.
Thanks so much for your question, Ms. Jess. You brought up something very interesting there in that answer, Ted. If multiple people do get injured in a vehicle, yes. Let's say you drive a friend to work every day, you get into an accident, are you liable for those medical bills? Like what do you have to pay, and what comes into coverage, if that makes sense?
There's a couple of different aspects of coverage anytime you're in an accident. For example, in your scenario, I'm driving and my friend is in the car with me.
Right.
If I am at fault for the accident, I caused the accident or bear any responsibility for the accident, then yes, I can be liable to my passenger under the bodily injury portion of my policy. But irrespective of fault, if someone is riding my car, even if I'm not at fault, then they can potentially recover on the no-fault PIP portion of my policy. And then they obviously will have a claim against whoever caused the accident, the other person that hit us, or was responsible for it, whatever that may be. But let's take another step farther. If there's someone that hit us, caused the accident, and that person that caused the accident, let's say they had inadequate insurance, then my passenger can potentially recover under, if I have uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage, which we talked about a lot in this show, is coverage that you purchase on your own automobile policy in order to protect you, your resident relatives, and the occupants in your car from the fact that you may get hit by someone who carries no or little insurance. And so there's a couple of different policy pots that they can recover in, whether I'm at fault or someone else is at fault for that accident.